Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Today's session is all about AI-powered automations for logistics and supply chain teams, especially small and medium-sized businesses like yours who rely on Google Workspace, spreadsheets, email, and a lot of manual checks. We're not talking about enterprise-level systems that takes months and months to implement. We're talking about workflows that you can have up and running today, or to be more realistic, in 24 or 48 hours. To begin with, a few housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded and you can watch the replay or receive the recording in your inbox on the next business day. We'll also be sharing two assets with you, our automation vendor selection checklist, which is actually heavily focused on selecting a vendor for your document-centric workflows automation, and the case study from Tavezio, one that Josh Cohen, their president, will speak about shortly. And the very, very important part, you are very welcome to post your questions in the chat in any time. I'll address as many as I can during the session. If any question requires deeper technical consulting or understanding of how the product functions, we'll follow up with you by email afterwards. With that, let's get started. Oh, for those who are new to Zenphi, I'd like to say a couple of words about our automation platform. We're a no-code automation platform designed specifically for organizations that operate within Google Workspace or within the apps that you are very familiar with: Sheets, Drive, Docs, Gmail. Our customers use Zenphi to automate document heavy workflows across operations, procurement, supply chain, HR, and IT. We are built specifically for the companies that would like to automate their operation within Google Workspace and who would prefer that their operational team own the process, own the automation process itself, without relying on the IT departments to find some brown ways to deal with their tasks. As mentioned, we focus heavily on AI-powered document processing and end-to-end workflow automation, which makes Zenphi a very strong fit for logistics and supply chain teams who deal with large volumes of invoices, purchase orders, packing slip, vendor price list, and customer quote requests. Now let's talk about the real operational landscape we see across small and medium-sized logistics and supply chain companies, especially who don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on implementing complex full-scale ERP solutions. A 2025 industry survey conducted by Supply and Demand Chain Executive magazine revealed that fewer than 1 out of 3 supply chain organizations have fully integrated standardized processes. The rest continue to rely on spreadsheets and ad hoc tools. Meanwhile, data from HighRedis shows that 68% of businesses still enter invoice data manually, and only 20% of accounts payable teams are fully automated. Other processes that continue to be performed manually in many small and medium-sized organizations operating in logistics and supply chain environment include prospects quoting and price list updates. That's according to a Supply Chain Quarterly survey performed in June 2025. In this session, we decided to focus on 3 specific workflows that I'm pretty sure you are very familiar with. We actually received a lot of automation requests from logistics team around these specific workflows. That would be purchase order matching and reconciliation, process updates and supplier changes, code generation, and order intake. While we focus on these workflows, we see a lot of demand around automating these workflows, specifically coming from supply chain and logistics teams, but also because according to our analysis, those processes are very slow, repetitive, and extremely expensive to a team. How come they are expensive? You might think that running your operation manually is free. That's not exactly the case. Let's quantify the hidden costs that you're paying for running your operation without any automation whatsoever. Based on our 150 conversations with the customers and the prospects, we have arrived to the following conclusion. On average, a logistical procurement team member spends 35 to 40 minutes reconciling each purchase order, 2 to 3 hours preparing a quote, 30 to 60 minutes updating each vendor's price list, and several hours a week checking invoices manually. This easily adds up to 15 to 20 hours per week of repetitive administrative work, and that's per employee. Now apply the average hourly rate in the US logistics and supply chain sector, which would be, let's say, 28 to 35 dollars per hour, and that would give us 400 to 700 dollars per week, or 20,000 to 35,000 dollars per year that you pay per employee just for performing these operations manually. The good news is that most of these repetitive workflows are the easiest to automate, and you don't need a complex ERP solution or coding to do that on your own without any help from the IT department. With that, I'd like to hand things over to Fernanda Lopes, our customer success engineer, who will walk you through 3 real automations that logistics teams are using today. Hello, Fernanda. How's it going? Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Anna. Happy to be here once again.
Lovely. Let's jump into the workflows then straight away. And hopefully this time we'll have some questions coming in.
Now, this is a process that many people want to be able to automate because it can be so time consuming and it can have a huge risk of error. So this is to be able to automate your purchase order matching and reconciliation process in general. So this process is going to start is you're going to drop an invoice into a selected Google Drive folder and Zenphi will kick off the process. It'll take care of the rest. Now, we actually have this very handy action for finance documents, so you can use this for purchase orders, for invoices, for receipts. No setup needed, and you're going to be able to automatically, if your document includes it, extract all of this information without any setup, no configuration needed. You're going to be able to find things like the address, the invoice number, the invoice date, and much, much more. Now, once we've extracted the invoice number, what we're going to do is head on over to where we store the information from our purchase orders. Now, what we're going to do is find the one that has the exact same invoice number. That way we can find the appropriate information for the purchase order that corresponds to the invoice that was just added. Once we find the row that corresponds to this specific invoice, we're going to return the purchase order information. So things like the supplier name, the invoice number, the SKU, the amount, etc. And what we're going to do is go field by field. So here I have a couple examples, but if you want to go ahead and add more, maybe you want to add the SKU, you want to add things like an email, you're able to check if the fields match. And if not, what we're going to do is we're going to mark the match status as a mismatch. That way at the end we can take the corresponding steps. So first we're going to check if the supplier name matches. If it does, we're going to move on and check now if the invoice date matches. If that matches, we're going to go ahead and check the invoice amount. Now here we're going over 3 different fields, but remember with Zenphi you can customize this process. So if during your PO matching you have to check up to 20 fields, you're able to do that. You can add different conditions and Zenphi will be able to handle all of that easily. However, if at any point any of these fields don't match, I'm going to update the match status to a no. Now, depending on if the fields matched or not, we're going to want to fill out our reconciliation log a bit differently. Some fields will remain the same, however, others won't. So what we're going to do is go over to our reconciliation log. It looks like this. We're going to be adding the information found to the spreadsheet, but what's going to change, whether it matches or not, is the status. So if the fields do match, we're going to add the found fields as we can see here, and the match status will be match, and then the status will be sent for payment. So what we're going to do is assign a task to finance. That way they can handle the payment for this specific invoice. We can let them know it has been matched already. Here is the information that was found. Here is the invoice. Please pay. And what's great about automating these types of tasks with Zenphi is you're able to set up reminders and expiry to make sure that these processes are not going through the cracks. You make sure you handle all of these payments as soon as possible. However, if it doesn't match, what we're going to do is also fill out the reconciliation log, but we're going to make sure we indicate mismatch and that it was sent to the manager for review. Now, what we can do here is instead of a task, we can send an email notifying them that we found a discrepancy. We can attach the necessary documents, the information on what row they should be looking at, for example. That way they can review and handle any issues accordingly. This is going to ensure that you always keep humans in the loop if necessary, or if any documents are missing, for example, if you can't find the purchase order in the sheet. And at the same time, you can make sure that you're handling these auditing processes in a compliant manner. For example, here after finance has completed the task, we're going to make sure we update the status to paid. That way everyone is aware of what status every single invoice is in at all times. And what's great about this is everything was kept within our Google Workspace environment using Google Sheets, using our Gmail. So everything is very known to our users and they don't have to learn to use other tools either. Everything will be native to what they already know and love.
Thanks for sharing this workflow, Fernanda. It's very insightful. However, I'm afraid for some of our listeners or webinar visitors, I believe this PO reconciliation workflow might feel a bit complicated. So do you believe someone who is not that technical can handle it? Can people get some help from the Zenphi team?
Yes, so I always say that anyone can use Zenphi, anyone can build a flow, and it may seem a little daunting or intimidating to create a flow that's so long, but I promise it's not as complicated as it seems. There's different ways that you can receive assistance. We have a great support chat where myself or someone from my team can help you out. We also have our AI assistant who can help you build the backbone of your flow. We can help you polish it up. We have different tutorials on YouTube. So yes, even if you get stuck, even if you have technical knowledge and you get stuck, we're always available to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I guess that part is really helpful. Also, I have a question that is related to the newly launched product, Google Workspace Studio. I'm really sure everyone who is using Google Workspace has heard about it. So this Google Workspace Studio is a native Google Workspace tool that allows users to automate a lot of workflows. I'm sure not everyone has used it yet because it hasn't been launched worldwide. It's been launched gradually to specific business users and customers. It would take a couple of months for everyone to get access to it. However, I know that you guys have tested Workspace Studio. According to your experience, have you tried to build something like this peer matching workflow there? Can it work? Can it replace Zenphi in this specific use case?
The simple answer would be no, Studio cannot replace Zenphi. So as of now, how Studio works is it's great for small pieces of your process, small automations. But if you want to be able to streamline or automate your entire PO matching process, for example, end to end, it wouldn't be able to do what Zenphi currently does.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's get to the second one.
Now let's go over how easy it can be to automate your quote creation process. This specific example starts with a form where we're going to collect data that we're going to need for their quote. That information could be the zip code where we're going to be shipping, for example, the total weight, dimensions of the box, the destination, etc. Now, previously, to be able to calculate their quote for shipping, we would need to use very complicated spreadsheets. We would need to look at the different zones, the airports, depending on how much it weighs, calculate that weight. So with Zenphi, we're going to simplify that process a lot. What we're going to do is refer to our rate sheet, so we'll be able to access it via Google Drive, which is the one I just showed, and then we're going to use Gemini to be able to actually calculate the quote. So in the prompt, what we're going to indicate is it's going to need to get the zip code that was provided in the form, and then what it's going to do is go to the appropriate tab based on the minimum charge and the weight that was calculated. Now here I have indicated the appropriate formulas that would normally be used when doing this manually, and then any conversions that are needed, as well as how to be able to output the email that we're looking for. What this is going to ensure is that the email that the client will be receiving will always follow the same format, and it's going to stick to the formulas and calculations I'm providing. Here I'm giving it the information from the form. And then once AI finishes creating the email that we'll be using to respond to the client, we're going to go ahead and create their quote in PDF format. Now this action makes it super simple. All you have to do is use a Google Doc template, and we're going to use the information from the form as well as this date, for example, which is the current date, and the current calculation to be able to generate that PDF. This will ensure that we have the same exact format for each one of our customers, as well as making sure that we keep the same naming convention, and we're saving all of these PDFs in the exact same spot. And then as a last step, we'll go ahead and send the quote. We can send it through email, we can send it through Google Chat, whatever you prefer, making sure to add the PDF as an attachment, and then we're going to be using the email generated by AI with their current quote email.
Thanks again, Fernanda. I have a question here from the chat. And this one is very legit, to be honest. Your quote creation flow starts with a Zenphi form. Is it a little bit different than a Google form? The main question is, can it be embedded in the website, or should it be used in the email communication? How exactly? Can you describe the scenario, how exactly this Google form should be shared with someone who is requesting a quote?
Yeah, so I always say that Zenphi forms are very similar to Google Forms with some additional functionalities. So if you know how to use a Google form, you can use a Zenphi form and you'll be able to have some additional features as well. Now here it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to be able to send a link through email, you can do that. Or if you want to be able to embed it into your website using HTML, that's also something you can do. So whatever your preference is, you can do.
Okay, thank you. And the third workflow, can't wait to see what you have for us today.
Now, in this example, what we're going to do is be able to update vendor pricing automatically. So let's say you receive changes through an email. So the first step we're going to do is find the current pricing page. So we have that listed in our Google Drive. It looks something like this. We have 3 different columns: the product ID, the product, and then the actual price. And then what we're going to do is use AI to be able to compare the old pricing with the new pricing that was received. So it's going to go item by item, seeing if there are any changes, and if there are any changes, it's going to save that in a collection, which we will use later. Once it finishes looking at all of the different items, it's going to go through the items that it found it needs to update. So what it's going to do is find that product within our existing list and update it with the new pricing. Last but not least, we're going to ensure that the sales team is aware of these changes, so we're going to let it know which items were modified via email. So in this email, we're going to let them know we have updated the pricing for the following products. And just like that, your items will be automatically updated with the newest pricing as soon as it comes in via email. Your sales team will be in the know, and they won't have to manually go and check which items have changed pricing. Update that information. This is going to avoid errors, as well as make sure it's updated as soon as possible.
Thanks again. That was very, very helpful. I have a question regarding this is basically the relevance to the real life of the specific scenario that you described in the workflow. What if it arrives in an image, in a PDF or a scan file? Can Zenphi handle that? Should the users utilize the very same workflow, or should they be a different one?
You could use the exact same workflow with a couple of tweaks, but in general, Zenphi is great at being able to extract information from documents as well. So if it comes through an email, if it comes through a PDF, we can work with that using Gemini, OpenAI, whatever you prefer to use.
Absolutely, can't agree more. Thank you so much, Fernanda. Now I'd like to replay a recording of my conversation with Josh Cohen, president of Tavezio. Josh will share how his procurement team went from being 1 to 2 months behind on invoice processing and struggling with vendor dissatisfaction, obviously, to achieving same-day accuracy, thanks to automated invoice verification and processing that was built entirely within Gmail and Sheets. Let's listen to what Josh is about to say. Hello, Josh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to talk.
First, do you mind just providing us very quickly the top level details about the project that you started, I guess, a couple of years ago?
Of course. So as part of our business process, we do what we call an invoice verification for all of our members, checking to make sure what they're paying is the proper amount on the invoice comparatively to their PO, which are placed through our system and generated to outside vendors. We had been doing this, the company's been around for 30 years. It was done by hand. We upgraded over the years to at least having digital copies of invoices, but it was still being done by hand. During June, July, and August, we're processing tens of thousands of invoices, and we used to hire what we called our college interns to do it. So we knew we had to make a change, and the task that we had at hand and how we found Zenphi was to be able to create an automation that would be able to read the invoices as they came in, turn them into a digital file, and then send that to our proprietary system to be able to do the invoice verification. And it's been a huge savings for us in labor and time, in cost, every which way, and really most importantly, accuracy is significantly better now that we've created this automation. But we were way behind in getting invoices back at the end of a summer. It wasn't unusual for us to be behind by literally a month behind, that we were still working on things. And then lastly, our employees, and again, we love employing. We still employ a lot of college students in the summer, but the beautiful thing about Zenphi is I don't have to ask them to put their cell phones down, and accuracy is significantly better. The things that we're finding now, that we now, when we've done some audits and go back a few years ago, we were missing a lot more things, and because of the automation, we're being able to really deal with the true issues and letting the system deal with everything else. Moving on to our members, there were multiple pain points. One, they were being tasked to have to scan every single invoice when it came in. Most of them were taking pictures with their phones. Copies weren't accurate, hard to see. There were delays in getting them to us. And then our members were getting upset because we weren't processing the invoices fast enough, which then goes into, unfortunately, our staff. And while we loved having our interns, we estimate that last year, if we did not have Zenphi, we would have probably realistically needed close to 15 interns for the summer. We replaced 15 interns with Zenphi, plus we had 1.5 interns working on that same project. Because of the automation that we did. I think it's always a concern, and people, is AI going to replace people? And in some part of this task it was, but for us, we were able to have people doing more things, which then gave our members a better experience, and we're providing them with an even better service because we're not bogging ourselves down with what we're doing. The gentleman who oversees the whole invoice department, we are now so automated that he has taken an additional role of helping us with other technology, and Zenphi is a big part of that. We have a saying in our office is basically, can Zenphi do that for us? So an idea will come up, and then we will sit down and review and say, yes, this is an automation that we should. So we've moved. In addition to that major process, we've now instituted multiple other versions of workflows in Zenphi that are helping us with our daily tasks. When something fails, which it can for numerous reasons, not just because of a Zenphi, it could be that the data was pulled in wrong, or in most cases, it's because there is something wrong with the invoice. We have what we call, it goes to human review. So I counter I believe, people are just so concerned about, AI, is it going to destroy people because it's too much. I counter it and say, no, I think it's the opposite. When it's used properly, it's allowing us as, humans to do a better job and to do a better review, helping people to do a better job. It's never going to be perfect. I think everyone knows that. But in today's day and age, and especially in the market we're both in and who we're dealing with, it's getting information in a much better way much faster so that people can get a good understanding. Is it always going to be 100% accurate? No. Is it getting better every day? Definitely. And I think we're only going to see this continue to grow. But I think the value of it is just so much for us, that it's letting us do a better job, and we're hearing that from our members of how impressed they are with what we're able to do for them. There are things that we're doing. We have found anything that's a repetitive task is what we right now are working the hardest on, to say, okay, what can we do to automate this? Because this has to be a better way to do this and not spend someone's time. And in some cases, it's because we're going to reallot their time, and in some cases, it's because we want them to take a step back, take a breath, and enjoy themselves. And that's our biggest goal. And as we continue, um, and as I referenced earlier, that's what we do when we say, can Zenphi do this for us? We have 2 or 3 other projects that are fully engaged now, where Zenphi has automated things for us, notifying us when there's an error in our EDI, and sending it to a group chat. So it's allowing us to be able to tell everyone. It used to just come in an email, but now this is a much better way because it sends an alert in a chat and we all see it, and we're not just ignoring an email. Such a little thing, but it's making it better, and we can then work on that. And then a boatload of other things that Doug in our office has been able to jump in, and we'll come in the office and say, Josh, what do you think we should, how about this? And it's doing amazing things for us. We have another task that as soon as we finish an upgrade, it's the only delays on our end, where we literally have someone on a Friday spending 3 to 4 hours adjusting pricing feeds from about 100 vendors, and it's consistent. So there's no reason, and we know we can build the Zenphi part for it. There's one step that it's not a Zenphi issue. It's a our system issue about the type of file. So once we get that upgraded, hopefully in the next month, then that will literally free up this person's job on a Friday to be able to monitor them and not have to sit there and do this as a manual task, and be able to free up some of his time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And a special thank you to Fernanda for demonstrating how workflows might be built within Zenphi. And of course, to George for sharing his insights on how this looks in real life. Let me quickly summarize what we covered. We looked at 3 workflows that almost every logistics and supply chain team would encounter on a daily basis. Just order reconciliation, quote generation, vendor price list updates, and of course, invoice processing. We saw how AI and automation can take these repetitive, time-consuming tasks and turn them into very simple and reliable processes built on top of the tools that you're already familiar with, like Gmail, Sheets, Drive, Google Docs, PDFs. Through Josh's story, we saw how this might look in real life, how one team went from being months and months behind and very unhappy customers to the same day invoice processing with fewer errors and far less pressure, to be honest, on the team doing the work. The key takeaway for today is you don't need to replace your systems, and you don't need a very complex, expensive, full-scale ERP system to modernize your operations. What you can do is you can start small, look at the process that you have at hand, find the one that creates most of the pain, that demands a lot of manual work, and start operating it using Zenphi. Let me remind you that you will receive the video recording of this conversation on the next business day. You will also get the automation vendor selection checklist that's just very helpful to find the company that will fit your requirements 100%. And Josh Cohen and Tavezio's team case study. Everything will be delivered to your mailbox shortly. If you'd like to map out what automation could look like in your use case specifically, we are happy to help. Just reply to the follow-up email or book a call with our team, and we'll be happy to dive deeper into your use case and to walk through your current process together, provide you tips and advice on how your workflows can be automated or just improved from the state they are today. Thanks again for spending this time with us. Have a great day, and we hope to speak with you soon.